Grand Admiral Krelos Narek nearly sloshed his stimulant beverage across the command console.
What do you mean a human vessel is approaching? He wasn't yelling, no, no, no.
Supreme commanders of the Zanththeran Dominion 7th Armada did not yell. They merely emphasized with extreme prejudice.
The sensor officer, Lieutenant Plex, shrunk, quite literally, as Xantherans could compress their spinal columns when threatened.
Sir, long-range scanners confirmed it 17 minutes ago.
Signature matches known human warship configurations. It's one of their dreadnoughts.
Wonderful, just wonderful. Krell slammed his four-fingered hand onto the glossy black surface of his command chair. The one species in this forsaken galaxy that doesn't have the common courtesy to flee when outgunned 50-1 decides to crash our perfectly orchestrated invasion. He emitted a hollow, rattling laugh, like pebbles in a metal can.
The universe has a sense of humor, and apparently I'm the punchline.
The massive viewscreen dominating the bridge of the Zanththeran flagship Inevitable Dominance flickered to life, displaying a strange object against the starfield. To call it a ship would be generous, to call it elegant would be an outright falsehood. The human vessel resembled nothing so much as a flying brick with engines, a rectangular monstrosity riddled with weapon ports, sensor arrays, and what appeared to be.
Were those actual windows on a warship?
They build their vessels with windows.
Lieutenant Plex, can you believe it? Krell gestured with all four arms simultaneously. Transparent sections on a combat vessel.
It's like they're begging to be shot, and yet somehow they keep surviving.
The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances.
Everyone had heard the stories.
Sir, Communications Officer Vin spoke up, her voice trembling slightly. Should we hail them?
Protocol suggests.
Protocol.
Krell spun his command chair to face her. Let me tell you what happened to the last fleet commander who followed protocol with humans. Captain Thraz of the Unyielding Fist hailed a human vessel, politely informed them they were trespassing in Zanththeran space, and requested they leave immediately.
Do you know what the humans did?
The bridge fell silent. They thanked him for the information, apologized for the intrusion, promised to leave, and then, while Thraz was busy accepting their apology, they launched what they call boarding pods directly into his ship's hangar bay.
37 humans against a crew of 600 Xanthers.
When it was over, they controlled the Unyielding Fist and had Captain Thraz answering their questions about fleet deployments.
Lieutenant Plex's exoskeletal plates clicked nervously.
This ship is altering course. It appears to be on a direct intercept trajectory with our fleet.
Of course it is,
Krell sighed, a long, wheezing sound. One ship, one ridiculously boxy, aesthetically offensive ship, thinking it can take on the pride of the Zanththeran Dominion.
He paused, mandibles twitching, and inquired, what's their weapon status?
That's just it, sir, Tactical Officer MZ interrupted, confusion evident in his three pupil eyes.
They're running with shields at minimum, weapon systems powered down. They're broadcasting on an open frequency, some kind of audio signal. Krell's antennae straightened in alarm. Don't you dare play it. Too late. Rez had already activated the audio feed.
The bridge was suddenly filled with rhythmic pounding sounds, wailing instruments, and a human voice screaming something about a highway in the danger zone. Krell covered his auditory receptors with his upper arms while using his lower arms to frantically signal for the audio to be cut. When blissful silence finally returned, he glared at Mez with all the fury a Zanththerian could muster.
Did you learn nothing in your tactical training? That's how they got the Praxis fleet. Humans broadcast their music as psychological warfare.
It bypasses rational thought centers and lodges directly in memory processors. I'll be hearing that infernal noise in my sleep cycle for weeks now. The Grand Admiral turned back to the viewscreen, watching as the lone human vessel, now identified in the system as the U.S. Relentless, continued its unwavering approach toward the heart of the Zanththeran fleet. Notify all ships, Krell finally ordered, his voice unnaturally calm.
Battle stations. Full defensive formation Delta 6. And may the cosmic entities have mercy on our exoskeletons, because those humans definitely won't. Panic and strategy meeting among alien leadership. 15 minutes later, the Zanththeran War Council convened in the flagship Strategic Command Center.
7 fleet captains, 3 tactical advisors, and 1 increasingly agitated Grand Admiral gathered around the holographic display showing the human vessel's steady approach. "They're just coming straight at us," Captain Lorax of the assault cruiser Magnificent Terror observed, unnecessarily. "No evasive patterns, no stealth, just forward." "That's how they operate," snapped Krell, pacing around the table on his 4 segmented legs.
"Humans lack subtlety. They compensate with sheer mind-numbing audacity."
Senior Tactical Advisor Baz Trell stroked his sensory filaments thoughtfully. "I've studied every recorded engagement with human vessels. Their technology isn't particularly advanced. Their ships are, frankly, primitive by our standards, but they're unpredictable."
"Unpredictable?" Captain Zen of the destroyer Voidsplitter laughed nervously. "They're completely predictable.
They always attack directly, head-on." "Yes, but how they attack," Baz pulled up historical battle footage.
"In the Andrax conflict, humans used mining vessels as kamikaze ships. At Proculon Beta, they vented reactor plasma to create sensor blinding clouds.
During the Helios incursion, they deliberately triggered a solar flare to disable an entire Marxian battle group." Krell slammed both right arms onto the table.
"Enough with the history lesson. I want options, people, actual workable options." An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. "We could."
Captain Rex of the Triumphant Claw hesitated. "We could just let them pass through our formation, continue with our primary mission." Krell stared at him with all 4 eyes.
"Are you suggesting we ignore a human warship? Pretend it doesn't exist? Just turn our backs on the species that once used a planet as a weapon?" "That was never conclusively proven," muttered Baz. Silence. Krell's exoskeleton rattled with frustration. "Here's what we're going to do. We'll split the fleet.
Primary battle group continues toward the Nexelian colony as planned. Secondary group, 9 destroyers and the heavy cruiser dominating presence, will intercept the human vessel.
10 ships against 1 human dreadnought."
Captain Lorax's mandibles clicked anxiously.
"Is that sufficient?"
"Sufficient?" Krell's laugh was sharp enough to make everyone flinch.
"It's excessive.
10 of our most advanced warships against 1 human brick with engines. There'll be space debris before their captain can say 'hold my beer,' which, by the way, is a human battle cry."
"Look it up."
Tactical Officer Mez, who had been summoned to the meeting, cleared his throat nervously.
"Sir, I've been analyzing their transmission patterns.
They're broadcasting their position to someone, continuously. B. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees."
"You think they're not alone?" Baz asked, his skin shifting to a paler shade of blue. "When are humans ever alone?"
Krell hissed.
"They're like vermin.
Where you see one, there are always more lurking nearby."
"Change of plans," the Grand Admiral announced after a moment of contemplation.
"We engage with 20 ships.
Full weapons complement. No holding back.
I want that human vessel disabled, boarded, and studied before they can call for reinforcements." Captain Zen raised a tentative appendage.
"And if they resist boarding?" Krell's 4 eyes narrowed to slits.
"Then we obliterate them with overwhelming force and tell our superiors they self-destructed. Either way, I want this human problem solved before it multiplies." As the council dispersed to their respective ships, Krell remained, staring at the holographic representation of the human vessel, still broadcasting that infernal music, still on its unwavering course toward the heart of the Zanththeran fleet.
"What are you playing at?" he whispered to the hologram. "What could possibly make you think this is a good idea?"
The hologram predictably offered no answers, just the steady blinking light of a human ship that clearly hadn't gotten the memo about being hopelessly outmatched.
"First engagement with the human ship. Intercept formation established, Admiral."
20 ships in position. Lieutenant Plex's voice had steadied somewhat, though his exoskeletal plates still clicked with nervous energy. Krell nodded, 4 eyes fixed on the tactical display. The human vessel, U.S. Relentless, now hung in space before them, framed by the perfect crescent formation of Zanththeran warships. The scene reminded Krell of predators surrounding prey, except in this case, the prey seemed bizarrely unconcerned about its predicament.
Open a communication channel, Krell ordered. Let's at least observe the formalities before we blast them into cosmic dust.
The viewscreen flickered, and a human face appeared. Krell had seen humans before, but they never ceased to disturb him, such soft exteriors, no proper exoskeleton, those flat faces with the bizarrely expressive features. This particular specimen had dark coloration, a strip of facial hair beneath its nasal openings, and what appeared to be artificial enhancements covering its visual organs. "This is Captain Rick Torres of the United Earthship Relentless," the human said, showing far too many teeth in what Krell recognized as their smile gesture.
"Nice welcoming committee you've got here. Did you really need 20 ships, though? Makes me feel special." Krell bristled. "I am Grand Admiral Krello Nurok of the Zanththeran Dominion 7th Armada.
You have entered restricted space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." The human captain laughed, and adjusted something on his face covering.
"Yeah, that's not going to happen, Admiral. Here's my counter-proposal. You take your fleet and turn around, forget whatever nasty business you had planned for the next alien colony, go home, have a nice cup of whatever passes for tea in your civilization, and live to fight another day."
Scattered gasps echoed across the bridge.
How did the human know about their target?
"You are outnumbered 20-1, Krell stated, struggling to keep his voice level. "Your ship, while impressive for human standards, is no match for even one of our destroyers.
I suggest you reconsider your position."
See, that's where you're wrong," Captain Torres leaned forward, his voice dropping conspiratorially.
"What you're seeing isn't the whole picture. Never is with us humans, right? Isn't that what your intelligence reports say? That we're dangerously unpredictable?"
Krell felt a cold sensation in his primary circulation system. "Fire a warning shot," he ordered, minimal power, across their bow. The nearest destroyer, Voidsplitter, launched a plasma torpedo that streaked through space, passing within 100 meters of the human vessel's forward section.
The human captain didn't even flinch. Interesting choice. Our turn. Before Krell could respond, the human ship changed.
Sections of its hull that had appeared solid suddenly split open, revealing concealed weapon ports. A previously undetected energy signature surged from somewhere deep within the vessel. "Weapons locked on all 20 of your ships, Admiral," Torres announced casually, as if commenting on weather patterns. "And just to be clear, our new T9 quantum torpedoes can punch through your shields like they're made of tissue paper."
"Want to see a demonstration?" "They're bluffing," hissed Tactical Officer MZ. "Our scans show nothing capable of threatening our—"
A brilliant flash of light erupted from the human vessel, followed by a streak of energy that moved faster than the tracking systems could follow. The destroyer Eternal Victory, at the edge of the formation, shuddered as something struck its shields, which collapsed instantly.
The shot continued through, striking the hull with surgical precision.
No explosion, no catastrophic damage, just a perfect circular hole through the ship's main sensor array. The bridge of the inevitable dominance fell silent. "That," said Captain Torres pleasantly, "was at 5% power, one weapon targeting system's barely warmed up. The next one goes through your engine cores, all of them simultaneously." Krell stared at the human's face on the screen, searching for signs of deception but finding none. "You have exactly 60 seconds to order your fleet to stand down and reverse course," Torres continued, checking some device on his wrist, "starting now." And just like that, the rules of engagement had changed completely.
Flashback to previous human encounters.
As the countdown ticked away, Krell's mind raced back to his first encounter with humans nearly 15 orbital cycles ago. He had been a junior tactical officer aboard the science vessel Meticulous Discovery, tasked with observing a newly spacefaring species that had somehow leapfrogged from primitive chemical rockets to functional faster-than-light travel in less than 200 years. "They're an anomaly," Chief Scientist VZ had explained during the mission briefing. "Most species take at least 500 years to develop FTL capabilities after achieving orbit.
Humans did it in a fraction of that time."
"Perhaps they received outside assistance," someone had suggested. "No evidence of that," VZ had replied, mandibles twitching in fascination.
"They're just startlingly adaptive. They see a problem, they solve it, inefficiently, inelegantly, but quickly.
The meticulous Discovery had been observing from the shadow of a gas giant when the human vessel appeared, not where they'd expected it.
It's not following any known trajectory. It simply popped into existence 3,000 kilometers off our port bow.
How did they find us? Captain Drex had demanded, panic evident in his voice.
Before anyone could answer, the human ship had hailed them. "Hey there! You guys have been watching us for weeks.
We thought we'd swing by and say hello in person." Their stealth systems had been state-of-the-art. Their position had been mathematically perfect for observation without detection. And yet somehow the humans had spotted them, tracked them, and then surprised them with a social call. The memory shifted to 3 cycles later, during the infamous Aurelian incident.
Krell had been second in command aboard the battlecruiser Dominant Assertion.
The humans had established an unauthorized outpost on the mineral-rich moon of Aurelius IV, technically Zanththeran territory, though admittedly at the very fringes of their space. Protocol dictated a show of force, 3 warships against 1 small human outpost with minimal defenses.
It should have been simple.
"Surrender your installation or face obliteration," Commander Vex had transmitted. The human response had been puzzling.
"How about we race for it instead?"
Before anyone could decipher this nonsensical reply, 30 small craft had erupted from the outpost, mining vessels retrofitted with makeshift weapons. They didn't attack the Zanththeran warships directly. Instead, they raced toward the nearby asteroid field and began mining frantically, chaotically.
"What are they doing?"
Rex had wondered aloud.
3 hours later, they had their answer.
The humans had systematically altered the orbit of 7 mid-sized asteroids, creating a cascading collision effect that resulted in one enormous mass of rock hurtling toward the Zanththeran vessels at tremendous speed.
The Dominant Assertion and 1 other ship had escaped.
The third had been reduced to scattered atoms. And then there was the Battle of Proximus, where a single human ship had taken on the Vrexian Armada, the most feared fighting force in that sector. The humans had been hopelessly outgunned, outmatched in every way. They'd broadcast an open channel message across the entire fleet: "We're going to give you 1 chance to surrender, but only because we're feeling generous today."
The Vrexians had laughed.
Then the human ship had somehow triggered the Proximus star to flare, releasing an electromagnetic pulse that disabled the entire Vrexian fleet.
No one knew how they'd done it. The science didn't make sense, but the results were undeniable. Krell snapped back to the present moment as Lieutenant Plex's voice cut through his memories. "Admiral, 30 seconds remaining in the human ultimatum." "Your orders?"
The human captain, Torres, was still on screen, looking infuriatingly calm, as if he were the one with a 20-ship advantage instead of facing overwhelming odds. And yet, the memories of previous human encounters left Krell with a distinctly uncomfortable feeling that perhaps, just perhaps, the odds weren't as overwhelming as they appeared. "Main battle sequence, 10 seconds remaining, Admiral," Lieutenant Plex announced, his voice barely audible over the high-pitched whine of the flagship's defensive systems powering up.
Krell made his decision.
"All ships, initiate attack patterns Zeta 9, full spread, all weapons systems.
Target their propulsion first, weapons second. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed." The human captain on screen, Torres, shook his head with an expression Krell recognized as disappointment.
"Wrong choice, Admiral, but hey, your funeral."
The transmission cut. "Sir, the human vessel is..." Tactical Officer Mez never finished his sentence. The U.S. Relentless vanished.
One moment it was there, centered in their targeting arrays, the next, nothing.
Where did they go? Krell roared, all 4 arms gesticulating wildly at the viewscreen. "Unknown, sir. Sensors detect no warp signature, no jump field, no." Plex froze mid-report.
"Sir, multiple energy spikes directly behind our formation." The viewscreen shifted to show the impossible.
The human vessel had somehow repositioned itself behind the Zanththeran fleet, carefully orchestrated attack formation. Before Krell could issue new orders, brilliant beams of energy lanced out from the Relentless, striking 3 Zanththeran destroyers simultaneously. Their shields flared, held for approximately 2.3 seconds, then collapsed completely. How is this possible? Krell demanded of no one in particular. Their weapons technology was assessed as at least 2 generations behind ours, sir. The destroyer's fearsome subjugator and dominant will report critical system failures.
The victorious intent has lost all power, Communications Officer Vin's voice rose in octave with each report.
Order the fleet to regroup. New formation pattern Epsilon 3.
Krell fought to maintain control of the rapidly deteriorating situation. And someone explained how the human vessel relocated without using any known form of FTL technology. No explanation was forthcoming because at that moment, the U.S. Relentless performed the same vanishing act again, only to reappear directly alongside the Zanththeran flagship Inevitable Dominance. The proximity alarm screamed as the tactical display showed the human vessel less than 500 meters off their starboard side, close enough that Krell could see individual weapon ports through the bridge viewports. This was supposed to be impossible in combat conditions.
Evasive maneuvers. All ships, fire. Krell was no longer pretending to maintain composure.
The space between the vessels lit up with energy weapons, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic projectiles, most of them from Zanththeran ships.
The human vessel seemed to absorb the first barrage, its shields glowing in eerie blue.
Then it returned fire.
It's not with energy beams this time, not with conventional weaponry at all.
Instead, dozens of small objects erupted from launch tubes along the Relentless hull, streaking toward the Zanththeran vessels like a swarm of enraged insects.
What are those?
Krell demanded, pointing at the tactical display with 2 of his upper limbs.
Unknown projectiles, sir. Too small for torpedoes, too large for kinetic rounds. They're altering course. They're guided. They're guided.
The swarm split into 20 precise groups, each targeting a different Zanththeran vessel.
When they struck, they didn't explode. Instead, they attached. Sir, unknown devices have adhered to our hull. They're emitting some kind of pulse. Lieutenant Plex's console suddenly went dark. Then every console on the bridge followed suit.
The lights flickered, dimmed, and switched to emergency backups.
Status report. Krell barked, but he already knew. Whatever those devices were, they had just disabled the most advanced flagship in the Zanththeran fleet without firing a single shot powerful enough to breach their hull. All systems offline, Admiral, came the stunned reply from engineering. Weapons, propulsion, shields, communications, everything except life support and minimal lighting. The view screen, now operating on backup power, showed the rest of the fleet suffering the same fate. Ship after ship went dark, drifting aimlessly, rendered into little more than metal shells floating in the void. And through it all, that infernal human vessel just sat there, watching, waiting, its engines glowing softly against the backdrop of stars, surrounded by 20 disabled Zanththeran warships. A crackle came through the emergency communication system, the only channel still functioning. This is Captain Torres of the U.S. Relentless. In case you're wondering, we just hit you with electromagnetic pulse disruptors, non-lethal, mostly temporary. Your ships will reboot in about 6 hours, which coincidentally is exactly how long it will take for the Nexelian evacuation ships to clear the sector.
Krell's mandibles clicked in fury.
You played us. This was all a distraction.
Not a distraction, Admiral, a statement. Torres' voice was calm, almost casual.
The Nexalians are under Earth's protection now. This little demonstration was to help you understand what that means. We could have destroyed your fleet. We chose not to. You expect gratitude? Krell hissed into the calm. We will hunt you down for this humiliation. The full might of the Zanththeran Dominion will do absolutely nothing, Torres interrupted, because we've also transmitted complete records of your planned attack on civilian Nexelian settlements to the Galactic Council.
Oops. Krell felt all 4 of his limbs go weak.
The Galactic Council. The one authority even the Zanththeran High Command respected and feared.
You can't prove anything, Krell tried, but his voice lacked conviction.
Torres laughed, the sound grating on Krell's auditory receptors.
Your tactical officer sent your attack plans over an unencrypted channel, Admiral.
Did no one ever teach you basic communication security? We intercepted everything 30 minutes before we even arrived in system.
As Krell struggled to process this catastrophic turn of events, Torres delivered the final blow. "Oh, and just so we're clear, next time we meet, if there is a next time, we won't be nearly as friendly." A pause. Relentless out. The communication line went dead, leaving Krell and his bridge crew in semi-darkness, surrounded by the humiliated remnants of what had been, just an hour ago, the pride of the Zanththeran fleet. Desperate last stand-by aliens 3 hours into their humiliating powerless drift, Grand Admiral Krell Vosnarek paced the emergency-lit bridge like a caged predator, his exoskeleton clicked rhythmically against the deck plating, the Zanththeran equivalent of nervous finger-tapping. "There must be something functional on this vessel," he growled. "We are the Zanththeran Dominion. We do not sit helplessly while a single human ship makes a mockery of us." Chief Engineer Trex, summoned to the bridge after futile attempts to restore power, ducked his head apologetically. "The human EMP devices are remarkably sophisticated, Admiral. They've created what appears to be a cascading feedback loop in our primary and secondary power systems. Every time we attempt to reroute through tertiary backups, the disruption pattern adapts." "Are you telling me," Krell's voice dropped dangerously low, "that human technology is superior to ours?" "Not superior exactly," Trex hurried to clarify, sensory filaments twitching anxiously, "just different, unexpected. They're using principles our engineers never considered because they're so primitive, backward, inferior," Krell supplied, each word sharper than the last. "Unorthodox," Trace finished. "They've weaponized concepts our scientists dismissed as impractical." Lieutenant Plex, who had been huddled over an antiquated manual scanner, one of the few devices simple enough to still function, suddenly straightened. "Sir, I've detected faint power signatures from 3 of our smaller vessels. The disruptors seem less effective against the older model destroyers with isolated backup systems." For the first time in hours, Krell felt a flicker of hope. "Which ships?" "The Victorious Intent, the Crushing Fist, and the Triumphant Claw. They're reporting approximately 20% power restoration, enough for limited maneuvering and possibly 1 weapon cycle each." Krell's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a Zanththeran smile. "Get me a secure communication line to those vessels, now." "Now." 10 minutes later, the commanders of the 3 partially functional destroyers had their orders. It wasn't much of a plan, more a desperate gambit, but it was better than floating helplessly while the humans escaped with their victory. "The human vessel remains in system," Krell addressed his bridge crew, his voice lowered conspiratorially. "Our long-range sensors may be disabled, but we can still see it with optical telescopes. They're maintaining position near the 4th planet, overseeing the alien evacuation." "Arrogant, complacent." "Sir," Tactical Officer Mez ventured hesitantly, "even with 3 destroyers partially operational, we're severely outmatched. That human vessel disabled our entire fleet in less than 2 minutes. They caught us unprepared," Krell hissed. "We underestimated them. We will not make that mistake again." He raised himself to his full height, all 4 arms held rigid in the traditional Zanththeran gesture of implacable resolve. "We strike from multiple vectors simultaneously. The Victorious Intent and Crushing Fist will approach from opposite sides, forcing the humans to divide their attention. Meanwhile, the Triumphant Claw will position itself for a direct attack run, using its mass driver cannon." "1 shot," murmured Communications Officer Vin. "They'll have power for 1 shot." "1 shot is all we need," Krell replied. "Target their bridge module." Humans foolishly centralize their command functions. Remove their leadership, and the rest will fall into disarray. No one pointed out the numerous flaws in this assessment of human tactical behavior. No one dared. 40 minutes later, the desperate plan was in motion. The 3 damaged Zanththeran destroyers limped toward the human vessel's position, using minimal power to avoid detection, approaching from 3 different vectors calculated to divide the Relentless defensive capabilities. From the powerless bridge of the flagship, Krell watched through a manual telescope as his last hope for salvaging some fragment of Zanththeran pride crept toward the unsuspecting human ship. Almost in range, he whispered, as if the humans might somehow hear him across the vacuum of space. "Just a little closer." The 3 Zanththeran vessels moved with agonizing slowness.